new Specialized Epic is officially a no-brainer. So, what have they done to the original smart suspension bike? And what does that mean in terms of performance on the trail? So, big changes for the Epic now. Not only is it 120mm up front, 120mm at rear, but shares its frame with the Epic Evo. And while it's still the dedicated full suspension all-rounder for racing, you got SWAT internal storage and the down tube there. And the biggest change on this S-Works model is that rather than the brain, brass mass, inertial, shock control you needed to kind of knock open with an impact to get the suspension working, the S-Works version now runs RockShox Flight Attendant on both the fork, the SID Ultimate, and the SID Deluxe Ultimate shock at the rear. So, if you've not seen my video or heard about it before, Flight Attendant is RockShox proprietary suspension management system. And for this XC version, it's got smarter than the original kind of enduro version. So not only is it pulling data from your fork and from your rear shock in terms of impact, size and speed, and your power change set in terms of how hard you're pedaling, but it's also slave to the rear mech, so it knows what gear you're in, because that provides a degree of like forward prediction. Obviously if you're gearing down, then it can expect to maybe climb, as if you're gearing up. Even if you're on smooth terrain at the moment, it kind of knows to maybe open up the shock and get things working that way. But I'm pretty sure it's pulling some data from other aspects as well. It feels like it's sensing the angle of the bike. You know, you've got enough triangulation now for it to be doing that. But RockShox obviously want to keep the exact technology fairly close to their chest, so they haven't told us everything, although it's definitely not reading off the seat post, because it still changes modes in the same manner whether your seat post up or seat post down, which is how I ride far too much of the time. But what it does with that information, it's sampling every 0.0015 from memory milliseconds, so super keen sampling rate. It's then switching you between sprint, which is effectively a lock mode, magic middle, which is a customizable sort of firm compression mode, especially on these XC race bikes, and then fully open, which, because it only puts you into that when the real need is there, that can be really, really open. And it's noticeable riding this bike back to back with the Evo, which is the longer travel bike, has a conventional Fox shock on. This bike's actually way smoother with a SID Lux on than the Fox Float. What that means is you've got a seriously tech and seriously technical capable bike now. This large with pedals on, I got XTS PDs on, is 1099 kilos, so I'm guessing mid-10s without the pedals on. But as modern XC courses have got rowdier, so the capability of the bikes that race on them has needed to really step up. And this is a seriously cool launch, because they've actually purpose built these trails in Manzanas, Chile, not just for the launch, but for like the local community to use as a racetrack in the bike park as part of specialized soil searching program. But this is a seriously rad trail to launch your race bike on, because this is a seriously rad race bike. So as you're pedaling, you can see on the fork top you've got not only the effort status that the bike is picking up from your pedaling and how much you're pushing it around, but also what shock mode you're in. So if it takes a smoother section or feels like you want to sprint, then it'll firm it up. And then if it's a more flowing section or dropping into a descent, rather than being on the power, then it opens it up to give you the smoothest response. And then back under power, and you can see red lights for effort, but it's still saying, yeah, but it's pretty rough. We want to stay in open front and rear. And as we drop into the fun part of this lap, you got to remember that not only is this the cross-country epic, but I'm still running it in high at this point, so it's like 66.4 head angle, 120 mil travel, XC tires. Whoa! I've not told those guys to be steezy rather than speedy, but they're still dropping me like a stone. I'm not used to the dust. Wait! But this bike! Whoa! Shit! Full travel. That was officially a horrible case. Oh boy, that was horrible. I've smashed that double full on. I completely buried the fork into it.
On the little uphill step up thing.
Yeah, just like, yeah. The little...
The guy I was riding with last lap, full front wheel cased it.
Yeah, me too, like full.
Your bike okay?
It seems to be.
But the head tube angle saved you.
Yeah.
Right, you were just testing.
Well, the stiffness, I guess. Everything saved me. Because here I am. Whew. Thanks, gentlemen. Thanks for your epic work in saving dumb old men. Don't say that I don't need push bike to the limits, even if that's through stupidity, not skill. Well, this is where this platform really comes alive. That instant stiffening, that really positive pedaling feel. No Specialized are definitely subscribing to the stiffest isn't always fastest vibe on paper, but this feels like a pretty firm chassis to me. Certainly nothing noodly going on through turns. Push the tires really well. When you get into that middle setting on the shock, up the sprint setting, it is not wasting the power through that XS SL change set. And again, spec is really on point, just like the World Cup. You've got the power meter as standard. Is it 168 mil Q factor on this crankset? Is it 168 Q factor? Yeah. So yeah, it's the same as the World Cup. So yeah, it's a proper racer spec. Got all the Roval SL, cockpit componentry. Again, that makes a seriously rigid, feedback rich connection to the bike. Now this feels like a clean calculating killer. Obviously RockShox had big success and specialized this year already on suspension GPT, indicator, LEDs down there on the fork top, and they're not only showing you essentially your suspension balance, whether it's open at the rear, open at the front, split, so one's more closed than the other, which again, it's something you can't do with the standard remote lockout, and you can dial all that in through the app, as well as the bias buttons on top of the fork. But it also links to your Quark power meter and gives you an effort score as well. And that's, you know, relative to you. That's not a pre-programmed, you must do 900 watts to get sprint mode. It's based on you. So wherever it perceives your sprint effort is, and you're going to want the bike locked out, that's when it will show you red, for example. Whereas if you're just chilling, you're getting blues or greens. So, and all that data is harvested in the app as well. So there's numerous ways you can go through post-ride, and you should even post each section and just get that full feedback on how the bike's been doing, how you've been doing. And it really is an information gathering, bike optimizing system, not just a suspension controller. And while it's easy to say that AI electronic suspension is going to be a big part of future race tech, and I think that's totally the case, it's not a given. Box live valve has never really made much of an impression on the scene or sales targets, and then Pidcock has had issues with the electronic sun tour on his bike, so to come in with such a strong, results-rich first season for the XC version at least, seriously impressive. And there's some really interesting kind of sideline aspects about Flight Attendant as well. The major guy behind it, in terms of making it work as an algorithm and an electrical system, before it came to RockShox, his main experience with guitar effects pedals. So he was dealing with harmonics and sound waves and basically turning electrical inputs into emotional experiences for guitar players. And that's exactly what he's doing on Flight Attendant now. It's not just a dry digital sort of dyno sensation for pure efficiency. Because of the way it actually learns and adapts to you as a rider, it tries to kind of second guess when you'd like that stiffness or that suppleness, and set up the algorithm specifically for how it thinks you'd like to ride. And I have to say, it does a pretty impressive job. And it's going to be really interesting to see what it does after lunch, because apparently it needs a bit of a learning time to really get into. It needs a bit of learning time after the initial sort of few laps of harvesting data. Kind of process all that and talk to your therapist, you know, give your mum a ring, maybe some primary school teachers, and I mean, to be fair, RockShox are pretty shy about telling us exactly where it gets the data from, but yeah, hopefully after lunch we'll notice a significant difference. Not that just I'm heavier. I kind of don't want to just make this purely about the suspension, because not only is the geometry rad, but it's got that stiffness and composure to make the most of it as well. Now, it's all very well having a slack front end and extra reach if the bike isn't tough enough to tie it together. In fact, at that point, it could become really dangerous. I've ridden those bikes. You gotta think, you're on a tear up, and next thing you know, they spat you into space like a shatterproof ruler. I mean, I'm literally sending this bike as hard as I would a trail bike. It's absolutely loving it. So composed and controlled on the landings. It's probably blown me away as this bike. Electronics or not, this is a huge amount of fun. Okay, so the idea now is to throw in a couple of fast laps just to appreciate. Whoa! Slid the front tire on the first turn. That's not a good sign. To kind of appreciate where the efficiency of the bike helps you in a no-brainer racing situation, so you're not worrying about the lockout or changing modes. You're letting the bike do it for you. So, what's probably going to happen is the fast, young, specialized guys and literally leave me for dust. You know, part of being old, being wily, taking the fast line, not necessarily ferocious line. And at least I'm hanging on to Fernando, Brazilian YouTube dude down here. And actually, although it obviously adds weight over a manual system, the electronics, this bike is actually lighter than the current S-Works, with the brass mass, inertia equipment, not by a massive amount, but Specialized is saying 76 grams for the frame. There's a bunch of detailing in there. It's 12M carbon on this S-Works. It's different linkage, yoke, and just little details like the shock tabs are molded now rather than made separately and bonded on. They're a little bit stiffer, stronger and lighter. So it's just chasing out grams wherever you can. Right, I need some lungs. Report back later. Okay, top of the course now. Give Fernando some space for the rock garden and the wall ride. He's gone around it. I think certainly the faster, more sensible choice, but you know, it's a race bike, but it's still a fun bike. Yeah! Hopefully close the gap up on the next descent if I stay on. And it definitely feels like our suspension is more optimized to me now. You okay?
Yeah.
It feels like it's moving pretty much when I want it to. And the nice thing is, obviously, it defaults to open whenever it gets the chance. So, you know, it's not like live valve, which leaves you in locked if you have a battery issue. This thing keeps, basically, it prioritizes control rather than rigidity. Something goes wrong with the system, so it's literally a fail safe rather than a fail rigid. Cheers. Oh, this is going to burn now. One thing I've not talked about is it's not the suspension that's optimized, it's also the geometry. Because obviously, if it's staying high and not compressing on climbs, the bike's saying sharper and steeper. So get it into descent, drifts into its travel, likely to be more at the rear, so it's like a smoother bike. And Specialized say it's 12% smoother in terms of bump force reaction than the previous Epic. Oh, too low gear. Damn it. I am getting tired. But at least I'm just mismanaging the gears. Not the suspension as well. Another thing Specialized have done, I think it's a great move on this bike, is they've increased the anti-squat compared to the Epic World Cup and the old Epic. So there's more native lift when it does break through the nose on the compression damper. It doesn't suddenly go from locked out to super squishy like those two bikes do, which I find really off-putting. And this is exactly the kind of horribly lumpy, low speed, lumpy pedaling, blown out legs and lungs situation where on the manual suspension system you wouldn't know what to do, but thanks to that flight attendant algorithm, Epic saying I need at least some suspension to get the traction and smoothness, and then fully open through the rock garden as you'd expect, and then into the finish. Woo!
Gasping.
You won the YouTube fight, dude. Well done, fella. Brazil won. UK smoked. And now I've been doing some laps with it in different modes, changing that bias setting, and it's pretty subtle. You just go for the +1, -1, but like +2, -2, big difference. You've got a very active bike or very efficient feeling bike, because it not only changes how quickly it tries to look for that more efficient option, but it also increases the bump force needed to get that shock moving. You know, that head angle dipping below 66 degrees in the low mode, this is unrecognizable from XC bikes only a few years ago. And also, what's interesting about this bike, coming in longer travel, it's like kind of makes that World Cup make more sense. There's a big overlap between the feel of that bike and the old Epic, whereas now there's much clearer separation. But yeah, what I don't want to gloss over is the fact that this thing is still an absolute hustler. You know, that downsloped Gullwing Roval SL cockpit, I've steepened the seat angle slightly, now up to 76.5, so you're getting that predatory forward pedaling position there as well. Really good poise for the steeps, so I'm getting good traction even with the Renegade on the back, the semi-slick tire. What's interesting is Specialized haven't shied away from the fact this is a bike that's going to hit stuff harder, so they've gone with control casing both ends. You're not getting a S-Works front anymore like you are on the World Cup. Again, it's a case of investing a little bit of weight in survival, because to finish first you got to finish, as the old adage goes. I mean, it's definitely not for everyone. Obviously there's 2 more batteries, there's more weight than a manual system. It might not always second guess in exactly the right way, but the more you ride it, the more accurate it's getting. And obviously it adds cost, plus there is that noise as it toggles in and out of those zones, making the most of this super light, super efficient S-Works chassis, and really embrace the pain of racing XC. Go from sprint to berm to roller to catch berm. This bike is just sensing and optimizing. Woo! And knocked some planks loose on that one. All the way down the trail. So it's always doing the right thing at the right time with millisecond accuracy. And I have to say, the suspension itself, amazingly composed. So smooth. So good. Even over serious hits, just collect them. Zero drama. Last run done. On the S-Works Epic. Hell yeah. So, after 2 days flat out on this S-Works Epic, what do I think? Frankly, I absolutely love it. I mean, it's easy for me to say that. I don't have to pay for it. It's going to be a crazy expensive bike when the pricing is released, no doubt about that. And there's a whole lot of technology that might be surplus to some people's requirements. They might actively dislike it, the noise, the extra batteries, all that stuff. But in terms of state-of-the-art speed and efficiency, this thing is absolutely stunning. Plus, it's got that amazing capability and confidence. So you're not only getting an absolute killer race bike, and I mean that in the truest sense of the word. This likes nothing better than to hunt down the hurt, whether it's in your legs or the people you're riding with. But it's still got that ability to properly push hard on descents and be a proper play bike. Plus, you've got the option to add a 130mm fork and whatever else kit, you know, bigger tyres, stickier tyres, and you've basically got the Epic Evo as well, which is an entirely separate video and an entirely separate tech talk around, which I shot yesterday after a day riding that bike. I mean, that's really changed. I mean, that's now 2 kilos heavier than this bike, and it's essentially a light trail bike in the same category as Tallboy SB120, you know, which I would have thought was my kind of preferred category. But now this is so capable. It's still got that absolute predatory prey drive. I absolutely love it. And with practicality like internal storage, it's been so useful these past 2 days. I've had everything there, like room keys, sun cream, snacks, my camera gear, mini tool. It's so genuinely useful having that in there. And even from a racer point of view, having a tube in there, having a CO2, everything like that, really at hand, really sealed. I think I would have said, I don't see why you'd want internal storage on a race bike, but the fact they put it in there while making the frame lighter, despite the fact it's stiffer, it's longer, it's slacker, and you can push it so much harder. Push it harder, I would definitely say, more than the previous Evo, even though the angles are very similar. It's got more reach, so it's more stable, and the suspension feels even more sorted. I really like what they've done with the anti-squat on this. It really gives it some real kind of fight through the pedals, whereas the old bike was light and it was super efficient, but it always felt a bit kind of mushy, a bit under power, whereas this is feisty as really is. And yeah, I mean, Flight Attendant pretty much deserves a separate video. I might even shoot one if I get a chance before that. But yeah, all the SRAM gear on here, from power meter, XXSL, tyre whiz, massive fan of tyre whiz, and the Flight Attendant themselves, just absolutely spot on. And just, you know, the detailing on the spec as well. They've just done a superb job on this bike. Hats off, chapeau, however you want to say it. This S-Works, I mean, there's going to be a whole load of other bikes coming into this category with Flight Attendant, I'm sure, when this launches in March. You know, first World Cup of the year always brings them out of the woodwork at flat out speed, but they've thrown down their serious state-of-the-art smart suspension gauntlet here. They really have. So massive thanks to Specialized for bringing me out to Chile to ride the two bikes. It's been a fantastic trip. The place, Matanzas, has been superb, and the locals super friendly, food amazing, landscape fantastic, especially if you like water sports along with your riding. Massive thanks to my regular channel sponsors, who I'll stick up there. So, you know, it would be a big help to me if you supported those brands, because they're supporting me. It'd be nice to return the favour if you can. Plus, if you really like what I'm doing on the channel, please subscribe on Patreon with these guys whose names are scrolling up here, and you'll get exclusive early edits which are ad-free as well, and I'll always do everything I can to help you with your in-depth questions for buying on this bike or any other biking questions you've got, really. You know, I know my way around the bike industry and technology, so I'm always happy to help out where I can. But, you know, obviously I'd expect this to cause some reaction in the comments, so yeah, get busy in there and I'll join in with you. Always good to have a lively debate after a bike test. And subscribe, click for notifications so you know when any other videos come up related to Epic or Epic Evo, and give this a thumbs up like so YouTube know you enjoyed it, and tell your mates about the channel as well, because that is the best way to spread my name and get the view count up, and hopefully, you know, gives your mates something that they'll enjoy watching. But for now, I've been Guy Kestevan on GuyKest TV, having an absolute blast in Matanzas, Chile, on the Specialized S-Works Epic. She sure is hella pretty, paw. And she's real fast too.